Hi, welcome back to Beyond Today for Tomorrow. I am your host, Valerie, and this evening we're going to be getting into talking about autism. Yes, that big intellectual disability that seems to be popping up more than we think. We're going to actually have my son on the show tonight, and he's going to give us some feedback regarding the misconceptions versus reality of being an adult male living with autism. So sit back, get your drink, and let's get into it. Welcome back. So, before we get into tonight's topic, I wanted to give an update on my medical situation or thyroid cancer, whatever you call it. So, I told you last week I was getting the radioactive iodine treatment on Thursday. And let me tell you, it wasn't um it wasn't a painful treatment, so let me say that. It was a little uncomfortable. So I'm at the hospital. The lady walks in with this tube, like this metal container, like you see on Dexter's Laboratory or some science lab. And I'm like, am I gonna start glowing like Homer Simpson when I leave here? The lady was like, oh no, 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 no. I was like, are you sure? Because have you even seen the intro to The Simpsons? He's playing around with radiation and you see he ends up glowing. She was like, no, I promise it's not gonna be like that. I was like, okay, we'll see. But anywho, so this super big metal container, the doctor comes in. Once he comes in, she opens it and they give me this little bitty pill that had to be protected in this metal container. And at that point, the magnitude of what I was actually there to do started hitting me. And I was like, should I really do this? Is this really going to be beneficial? I just started having so many other thoughts. So I take the pill. They're like, sit here a few minutes and then you can leave. And at this point, like the clock is ticking because I have to start separating myself from my loved ones for a few days. And the thing that I realized during my isolation, oh my God, I am so thankful that I had family close by that I could see or at least talk to. And I was grateful my son lived in my home. I was grateful that I had friends because I'm telling you, that isolation was totally different than the quarantine we went through last year. Because I had someone that I could at least communicate with. And then we eventually got a puppy. So we were bringing, love into the house. But I'm telling you, there was nothing like being on an isolated island by yourself. And I am not one, like I'll be on my phone, but I don't really do the FaceTime. And my son kept FaceTiming. And I had to remember, I'm like, oh, wow. In a lot of ways, I'm Kylan's connection to the world. So I have to, be in constant communication with him. So I walked away thinking, okay, I'm going to get through this. It's going to get better. And then, from the emotional standpoint, that lasted until Sunday when I started being able, I could at least be in the same room with them, but I definitely still had to do like the social distancing. And I think it was like more than 6 feet. So that started bringing my anxiety down and I was able to, at least come into the living room, socialize and talk for a little bit. But then Saturday, I started feeling the tingling in this area of my neck right here. Okay. So it felt like it felt like, when you skin your knee or something and you're pouring it felt like it just started like tingling, and it was like starting at a little pitch all day Saturday. And then Sunday it increased and it just was really doing it. I was like, wow. So if I'm to read the science, that this radiation is basically killing any remaining cancerous cells that were in that area. And I'm like, does the level of intensity that I'm feeling with the tingling indicate that I had something there? I started my brain, if you guys know me, I started having more questions than answers. So what I did, I messaged my doctor and I said, hey, I, don't want to alarm you, but I'm feeling like this tingling, and it's just like in one area. And she was like, okay, so that does mean that your body received the radiation and it's absorbing and it is working. So she said, my thinking was right. She was like, it doesn't necessarily quantify, something else was there or that it magnetized another area or anything like that. So she said, we'll tag up again after I do the full body scan. So the full body scan again made me feel like I was in a laboratory. And so they have this big donut. It almost looks like a CT scan, but there's another attachment to the plate. And then they have this camera that's on top of you, and they bring it as close as they can to you. So they're doing the scan. And even though you're technically not in a tube like an MRI, but you feel like claustrophobic because the thing is pushing down on you. And it comes out like 1/8 of an inch per minute. So a test that I thought was like probably gonna be like 20. I thought it was gonna be like a click picture. It was not. It ended up being more of a slow roll. And I was like, this is so creepy. But I made it through it. And I started, going back to the gym. So I was doing some cardio. So I'm excited about that because I'm like, great. I can start, slowly acclimating myself back to my normal schedule. So I was really happy about that. So for the most part, I maybe had like a minor headache. I didn't really have any major side effects, which was really good because I am the type of patient that if I'm going to have a side effect, I'll know pretty quickly. It's not going to be like, oh, I took it 2 or 3 days and I just let this rash grow, and it's nothing like that. I mean, I would know pretty quickly. The only other thing I could say, I dealt with a nauseated stomach, and I had some medicine for that, so I was good there. And it definitely left me a lot of alone time to like wonder what was going on with my body and should I be concerned about the things going on with my body. But I think I was watching Hulu last week. Yeah, maybe Hulu. And I just started watching silly stuff and tuning stuff out. So I survived that. So Shawnee, I wanted to ask you, what did you think of last week's show?
I thought last week's show was simply amazing. I learned a lot about massage therapy that I didn't know, and even like going to the chiropractor and the reason why you go. And it was very interesting. It was very interesting, not just for me, but like even stuff for my children, since they're athletes as well.
Yes.
The importance of getting those massages and going to the chiropractor. But they're kind of young, and I talked to their trainer about it. So she was like, well, since they're so young, unless they're complaining about, their muscles being tight or something, then, you send them. But for me, yeah, she highly recommended massage therapy like you did. Me as well.
I tell everyone, I'm like, it's something you definitely have to experience. And if you get a chance to take advantage of it, do it.
Yeah.
And especially if you get someone that you're comfortable with and they listen and they meet you at your point of need, and they're not trying to force conformity on someone. That's the main thing
Yeah.
I cannot stand is when you go somewhere and they're like, well, this is what I like. I'm like, no, I'm paying for this. So I need this to be at my comfort level so I can relax enough to receive the goodness, the yummy goodness that I'm waiting for. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So you tried a massage from James. So what did you think?
I did. So I listened to you and
Okay.
I reached out to James on Instagram.
Okay.
I inboxed him and he responded pretty quick. It was, within the same day. I think it was probably like within 3 hours he responded. And we got a dialogue going.
Okay.
And the next day we set an appointment to talk on the phone.
Okay.
And over the phone, I explained to him my concerns because I have an issue with people touching me. And I've had 2 massages before and they didn't really, go over well because I wasn't comfortable.
Okay.
And with that, James suggested, he was like, well, yeah, it'll probably be better if we do it in your home because that's your home. So that's going to help you be a little bit more comfortable. And he said, I'm not, he said, as far as the intensity of it, because that was the other thing. I was like, one just really hurt real bad. And the lady just kept digging and digging. And I was like, that hurt. That hurt.
Yeah.
And he said, well, no, I'll make sure that it doesn't hurt. I might not need to go that deep on you, but once we get started with the process, then I'll know, he said he would know what to do. So I went ahead and booked him.
Okay.
I think I actually booked him for the next day.
Okay.
And he arrived on time, very professional. He set up, and the funny part was when it was time for me to get on the table, I didn't want to take off my clothing.
Okay.
And so he was like, well, I'm going to step out so you can take your clothes off. I'm not going to stand right here. And I was like, no, I'm not taking my clothes off.
So you're like, we don't even have to worry about that.
This how we go have to do this.
Okay.
And he was like, okay. He's okay. And he worked with what made me comfortable.
Okay.
And that helped me relax some. Now, the only thing I will say about the massage that I didn't like had nothing to do with him because I was comfortable. He was very professional. He didn't seem like a creeper. He wasn't saying anything inappropriate. He didn't make me feel uncomfortable, but I couldn't turn my mind off. So while he was working on me, I'm still thinking about, okay, I got to go pick up my kids. I got to do this. I got this work to do. I got to finish this project. I got to get that done. So I couldn't just disconnect. But as far as, what I asked him, because I asked him if he would focus on my head, like scalp massages and my knees down to my knees, ankles, and my feet. I said, do everything else you do, but those are the spots that I really want. And he did that. He did that, and he did a good job.
That's good. And you know what? And that's the thing that I can remember when Kylan was younger. I would try to take me time, but I couldn't turn off my brain because it's like you have a never-ending to-do list. And so it's like when you do try to have those moments where this is just for you, I've blocked out this time, we have to learn to start being okay with having me time and being a little selfish. One of my counselor, I was talking to her the other day, and she told me, she was like, it's okay to feel like that. She was like, it's okay to turn off, and it's okay to not be okay. And it's okay to realize that, yes, I am Shawnee, the producer. Yes, I am mom. Yes, I am this. Yes, I am that. But I'm still, at the end of the day, Shawnee. And it's okay to just breathe and take some time. Because I look at it, and I was telling my son this when I was picking him up after work. I was like, I look at some of the things we do now, that's a foreign concept to our parents because they were raised different. So, and I think our generation, we still had the mothers that, had so much input from outer sources that flowed down to us. And then we are like holding on to unnecessary tension and stress because we have all these other commitments.
Yeah.
But
it made sense to me. And like, it helped me see how, doing the massage made me a better mom.
Because it helped you to be relaxed. Good evening, Kathy. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, Kathy. Yeah. So doing that helped me be a better person, which in turn made me be a better mom. And then we had track meets, and then it all went out the window. So I was like, okay, let me call him back and say, hey,
I'm scheduling.
I need, like, if I could get it every week, if I could get it every 5 days, I would, because I see the benefit, and it really made a difference. And it wasn't anything that was, it wasn't, I just, the main thing was I felt comfortable. And I think after a while, because I kind of look at him like I look at my doctor, my OBGYN. I've been with my OBGYN now almost 14, 15 years.
Okay.
And I think about, let's see, the oldest one is 12. So about, I would say maybe about, it was after I had the second one.
Okay.
After I had the second one, she's 11. That's when I really got comfortable with my OB. And I mean, I hope it don't take me 14 years to get, because that was the other thing. People were like, well, if you would have taken off your clothing, if you would have disrobed, you would have been able to enjoy it more. And I said, we gonna have to work to that. Now, eventually I did take the top off, because when he was trying to work my shoulders, it made sense. Like, I'm like, oh, he can't even, and I'm not getting anything, because he couldn't really
get to your muscle.
So I was like, okay, I'll take the shirt off. But
like, I'll take it off.
Yeah, I'll take the shirt off, but everything else staying on.
And you know what? I used to be very self-conscious, because I was always tall, and I always felt like it was more of me to look at. And even when I was in my fittest, I was always very, very self-conscious. And then I got to a point, I was like, fuck this. I like, it's people living their best life who smaller than me, bigger than me, whatever, So I'm like, why am I going to deny myself, So it takes a bit of time to get accustomed to the right person connecting with them, and where you feel that level of comfort, because maybe, you'll say, okay, I'm ready to take my massage and we can do A and B. And I think James is a great masseuse to build that relationship with.
Yeah, he is. I think he is. Okay. Is. So I will be booking again, and I recommend it to a few friends. So they're going to call him and book their appointments with him as well.
Okay. So we're going to take a quick break. And when we get back, we're going to begin talking about autism. Thank you.
What up, y'all? It's Michael Sean from Michael Sean and the Takeover Legends. And just in case you missed the show, check this out.
All right. Well, now I'm gonna say a word. You tell me your thoughts. White women.
Had enough.
Okay. Drugs.
Had enough.
Regrets.
Cocaine.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But actually, I have 3 regrets, okay?
Well, go. Expand. You don't have to do one word. Regrets.
Okay. I hate that I ever touched cocaine, because I wasted a lot of time tweaking. I hate that I missed my daughter's first Halloween and Thanksgiving because I was incarcerated. I hate that I never got to go to Studio 54. I regret that. And I regret that I never met Tupac.
Michael Sean and the Takeover Legends. Your escape from reality. Right here on Free Agent Radio. Free Agent Radio.
Welcome back. So, as I stated, tonight we will be discussing autism. And I'm going to provide a definition according to the Mayo Clinic for those of you who may not be completely aware what autism really is. So, autism spectrum disorder is a condition related to brain development that impacts how a person perceives and socializes with others, causes problems in social interaction and communication. The disorder includes limited and repetitive pattern of behaviors. The term spectrum and autism spectrum disorder refers to the wide range of symptoms and severity. I'm going to go further down, and it says some people still use the term Asperger's syndrome, which is generally thought to be at the mild end of the autism spectrum. One of the things that I really wish, here it is. It has right here. It says autism, Asperger's syndrome, childhood degenerative disorder, and unspecified forms of pervasive development disorder. So the development disorder, when my son was first diagnosed, and Shawnee, we can bring Kylan in with us for this conversation. He's probably going to be terribly embarrassed, but hey, I'm a mom, so I get to do it.
No, she don't.
Well, you gave me your permission, so can't take it back now.
I did.
Welcome, Kylan, to Beyond Today for Tomorrow. How are you this evening?
I'm really good. Thank you for having me on your show.
Okay, so back to my story. So when Kylan was first diagnosed, I was like, hold up, wait a minute. How we get to 8 years old and all of a sudden he's having epilepsy, seizures, and epilepsy and seizures the same thing, but he's diagnosed with epilepsy, and then they tell me he's autistic, and they tell me that there were some other developmental delays, and I was like, hold up. I went through all the prenatal care. I actually had a great doctor. She's still practicing now. I took care of him. He had a great pediatrician. I love Dr. Stephanie Perdue. If she's still practicing, I believe she was in Tarrant County somewhere. But I love them. Both of them were strong African-American women doctors, and I admired both of them. Both of them were very knowledgeable. But Dr. Perdue, we never had any concerns, questions, or idea that Kylan had autism. She did offer me a piece of advice. She said, if you ever need any type of testing done, she told me, don't let the school district do it. She said, pay for it with your insurance. She says your insurance has services that you do not know about that you need to utilize. And at that point, we didn't need it because he was fine. But it seemed like as he was growing, it's like he was missing just enough to missing slight development goals. And it wasn't anything major. It was just maybe if he was supposed to start walking in 12, he did it at 13 months. And if he was supposed to, run at a certain time, it was just little things. But when he went to school, we thought, okay, we noticed his fine motor skills were not the best. I noticed that he did deal with communication a little bit differently, but he was always I think vocabulary was something he was really into. But it wasn't until we found out, that he had the seizures that we went to the geneticist at Cook's Children's Hospital in Fort Worth. I'm telling you, one of the best. They had the best medical team. I'm telling you, they were phenomenal from start to finish. And I'm always a true believer. I love to see how professionals act away from their job, because that tells you so much. How about his neurologist? She was ushering at church. This lady who has, her life together, she could, just go to church and just be a passive bystander. But one Sunday we came in, I was like, I think that's Joy. And next time we went to visit, I said, do you have a twin sister? And she was like, no, that was me. I usher at church. And I was like, She didn't blow up her, like, well, I did this. She wasn't humble bragging or anything like that. She was 100% a volunteer. And I love that. But when we found out about autism, I think the only resource they really told us about was the autism spectrum. Was the Art Center in Fort Worth. And he was able to do a little bit of group counseling to work on the social aspect. The psychiatrist at Cook's told me that Kylan had the ability to mask. And we're going to talk about masking tonight, because you'll find that autistic children, just like the animals in the wild, have an ability to protect themselves against the environment. So, like, let's take, for instance, fine motor skills. When he was younger, he found a cheat skill for him to tie his shoes. He found a way how he would, manipulate knobs and tops and doors and things like that helped him blend versus standing out, that maybe something was not quite right. It was interesting when he was diagnosed. My father, love, hate him and Kylan were like thick as thieves, but my dad would always try to offer pearls of encouragement and hope. He said, first of all, you need to always have him know that just because he has that, that doesn't mean that's where his life is limited. And when he started telling me, get in, find support groups, he was always willing to play taxi, and I appreciated that. So Kylan was able to get quality care because I didn't have to worry about transportation. And sometimes you'll find that's how come a lot of parents are unable to get the resources and help that they need, because they need additional support. Like, they just need like a little help to get maybe someone to point A to point B, but they can't even get that. Believe it or not, the resources are still not where they should be for parents who deal with special needs children. And the nurse in the school district that he was a part of at that time, because Kylan went to public schools up until 6th grade. After 6th grade, we put him in charter schools for a little bit. But the thing that my dad would tell me, he would say, teach Kylan that he is more than a diagnosis on a sheet of paper, and that it's up to him to determine his quality of life. And I was like, yeah. And he was like, in those seizures, he was like, he can outgrow them, because I didn't know that one of the things a lot of young men deal with is they have epilepsy and they eventually outgrow it. But, it was just hearing hope from, my parents. My aunt, she called me and she was like, Valerie, he's going to be okay. It's not like what your cousin had. It's not what you think. She was like, they have good medication. It's going to be okay. And it wasn't until Kylan turned 21, this year, that we started realizing that there were possibly some pharmaceuticals that we could put into his medication regime that would help with his autism, that would help with his social anxiety, that would help with his depression, that would help with him being able to connect. Now, I'm not all for throwing pharmaceutical grade medication at problems, but sometimes they actually get it right with some of the medications. And after I did my research and looked up some of the side effects, it seems to be helping him. I can see him experiencing more emotions. He's having very clear thoughts, and he's learning to communicate and build a social life outside of family. So let's give him a hand for that. So with all of that, we're going to pull up some slides that Kylan and I put together. And we are going to talk about the misconceptions versus the reality of being an individual living with autism. And Shawnee, I don't know. Shawnee, are the slides up?
Mm.
Okay. So, first and foremost, Shawnee, go to the next slide. I want everyone to know it is okay to be different. We are not all meant to be the same. Think about it. If your 10 fingers have an individual fingerprint and they're on your hands, what do you think about your friends and family and loved ones? We're not all meant to be the same. Don't feel like, your child, like you've drawn the short straw or you did something wrong because your child has autism. And because, first of all, that negativity is going to flow down to your child, and you don't want that. Number one, you want to be like their biggest cheerleader, their biggest champion, their biggest advocate, because they're going to confront the world based on how you encourage them to confront the world. If you want them to live small and just play a victim because they have a diagnosis, that's totally disrespecting your child as well as yourself. Because I truly believe God doesn't put more on us than we can bear. And I know sometimes it seems like God is just continually pulling our numbers, but trust me, I believe it teaches us, it builds character in a way that other life experiences wouldn't do it. So it's okay to be different. It's okay that your child is different. And it's nothing to be ashamed about. As a matter of fact, the Autism Awareness Association has so many resources to help parents understand and get connected in their local community. The school districts have resources. I'm going to tell you, when we moved into our home in Justin, Texas, we moved into the Northwest ISD school district. If it wasn't for that school district, a lot of the resources that I learned about through the Intellectual Disability Council of Tarrant County, the job resources through DARS that helped my son get his first job. I'm telling you, there are resources out there. You're not in this alone. So don't feel like you're alone. Your pediatrician will have resources. Even your family doctor should have resources. And once you start building your personal network and connections, and you start realizing that you have built a community, you realize that you're not an island, that you have help, and that you have a village ready to help support you through your journey. I think that's amazing. So go to the next slide, Shawnee. We're going to get into the autism misconceptions versus realities. So, Kylan, are you still with me?
Yes, ma'am. I am always with you to the end.
Oh, look at my ride or die. So, I came across this presentation on Autism Speaks Instagram page, and I thought this really summed up some of Kylan's realities. So I want to hear his feedback and tell me if it's actually a accurate or inaccurate thought.
Honestly, I feel like it's we
hadn't gotten into it yet, so let's hold on. So next slide, Shawnee. So first question. Well, the first statement, it says, I get accused of being aggressive when I'm excitedly sharing something. Have you ever been accused of oversharing or being too aggressive when you're excited about something?
Honestly, I feel like that is mainly yes. I'm just going to go with yes.
Okay, that's cool. You know what? That's really true, because I can remember when you were a little boy and it was one Saturday morning, we were at the barbershop and you had your Thomas the Tank Engine James train with you. And so you were rolling them and the little boy next to you was like wanting to play. And you were like, sure, you can play with my train. And you were like, this is James. He's a very splendid engine.
I did
And
it
the
at the
mother,
barbershop.
wait, and then the mother was like, give that little boy back his trains. He don't want you playing with his trains. I cracked up because I was like, lady, that's how they describe this little train on the TV show. So why are you going all left? Because Kylan said it's a very splendid engine.
Wait, I did that at the barbershop.
Oh, yes.
Oh my
So
gosh.
when I say
Now
people
here,
always say that, well, that was, kind of rude. I'm like, no, he's not being
no.
rude. He's
Now
not
that-
he's not being aggressive, and he's not trying to intimidate you or anyone with his vocabulary. He's repeating literally what the cartoon said.
Now people do get that. I feel like people do get that kind of twisted. Like people sometimes give people weird looks
Mm-hmm.
because they're just overjoyed by something that they get or something that they have.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking like, really? And I know, and I've been accused because I know I might do it too. Like I've been because there's a new guy, Ryan. He got a yellow vest, and Dale has one at my job, and he's like, I look like a highlighter. So, and I'm like, okay, and I'm like, okay, I have to remind myself he's special needs, like me too, but he has it in a different way. So he's just overjoyed, and he looks like a highlighter. So I'm like, I joke around with him. So I'm like, yeah, just spray paint your hair, make it look yellow, and you would be a highlighter.
So let me ask you, does that make you feel good to know that you're special needs and you are mentoring someone else who's new to the workforce?
It makes me feel it makes me feel good to know that there are more special needs people out there. Like every time I come to work at Lowe's, I know that I see different people every day.
Okay.
And just mentoring somebody is difficult.
Thank you, Kathy. Kathy is giving you applause. So let me ask you. And again, Shani, totally my bad. I skipped a slide when I was reading my notes, but it's the slide that you had up before. So another misconception that the Autism Awareness had was, I'm not rude because I'm not making eye contact. It just makes me uncomfortable. No, the other one that we had up at first with the two squares. So I remember sometimes when I used to go to parent-teacher conferences, and before we knew that you had autism, I think I heard more feedback from teachers at that point that you really didn't make eye contact. Is that still true for you?
Yes, that is very true because sometimes I just find it hard to look at people and talk. And sometimes that happens when I'm nervous and I'm still trying to work on it. So, and sometimes and it happens when you're having a long conversation with somebody, or if you're in a group talking with somebody, and it's mainly happened when I'm around you and sometimes with other people. I can mainly do it. I can mainly focus on when it's just us. But with people at work, you're just so distracted and you're trying to keep up with everything, or you're trying to talk to them about what you want to say, or you get lost in the conversation. My eyes accidentally roll to the side, but it's not purposely. I'm like, I'm either trying to catch up on what they're saying, or I'm trying to stagger words, and sometimes my mouth get real slippy and I just can't figure out what to say. I just start repeating myself.
So it's safe to say you actually feel a physical reaction when you're interacting with someone.
Yeah.
Okay. So the next one I'm going to skip over, always misinterpret, but I wanted to go, sometimes I'm quiet and I can be perceived as being rude when actually you just find it hard to talk. Is that true of your social interactions as well?
Pretty much, because I've gotten that all my life.
But so now that, like we went and like now I remember when we used to go to the gym and at Larry North, you used to interact with the men in the group and you were really good at talking to the other teens in the group. Do you think sometimes that nervousness is intensified by the different settings? Like if you're in a general relaxed setting or a small setting, you're okay. But if you're in a super large setting, it makes it worse.
I think in a super large setting, I think I need like a medium setting, like Larry North was not a bad setting because it was maybe not that packed and maybe some of the people were middle aged.
Okay.
And I could get along with being North.
Well, no, it was teenagers there. Justin and the young lady at the front desk, they were around your age.
Yeah, because I knew that because it was something about, I don't know how I could sense it, but I knew that I could end up getting along with that. But it's just like something about it. People just think that I'm in and out going to be rude or something. And it's just like people sense that misinterpret that about me. And they just said, well, forget that. Let's go ahead and be mean to him or let's bully him. And, it's just something about that. Even at work, some people are nice to me, but then you got the people who are just like, shrug it off the shoulder.
Okay.
You get that a lot.
Well, that is why we have you on here tonight, to help people understand the basics. That's why I put on this slide, understanding the basics, because there are everyday behaviors that just because an individual doesn't stop and pull them to the side and say, hey, I'm autistic. It's just like, just because they can't see where you may have intense abilities. I know they don't call them disabilities anymore. They call them abilities. People people, the more we talk about it in settings like this, and the more we follow social media pages or support causes like Autism Speak and Autism Awareness, we help people understand and meet you at your level of need. Like when we moved into our home, something we did was that the time that we got stopped coming home by the police officer, I made him aware. I was like, hey, since you pulled us over, and we did not get a ticket. Thank you, Jesus. But
I know, right?
When we made him aware of your condition, the home that we lived in, and, how, they would interact with you, I think that helped us a lot. I think the more we make people aware of the strength that autistic individuals possess, I think it can take away some of the ignorance and the stereotypes that people assume because you have autism. Like, right. And Kathy, you're absolutely right. I know people who are perfectly normal and they don't make eye contact. When you're in a long conversation, you're not going to be able to just focus unless you're just like purposely trying to do that. But if that's something that is like a part of your chemical makeup, it's like telling a person to change their skin tone to fit the situation. I can't do that. I was born with this beautiful brown skin, and I'm not going to change it for anyone. So it's like you have to learn, or people need to learn, that we're all different. And just because someone is not giving you eye contact does not mean they're disrespecting you. Another one I wanted to address was I usually speak in a monotone voice, and people often assume I'm annoyed at them when I just can't control my voice. And I remember you've told me there were times that people made comments about your voice, and I'm like, you know what?
Yes,
That's a part of life, especially when hormones hit, your voice is going to do crazy things. And
Yeah. I remember back in my junior and senior year of Northwest High, people would spread crazy rumors. I'm like, I remember Brooke, one person I was totally associates with, barely, but he was riding the, I was riding the bus and he was saying, I heard a rumor about you. And he was like, one dude, he's like a senior, Michael Phelps, said, "Are you gay?" And I'm like, "No." But he was saying, "Your voice is like super pitched." And I was like, "So how am I supposed to talk?"
so how did that make you feel when people make assumptions about you when they don't know you?
It kind of irritates me. It and it kind of makes me upset, and then kind of just, but now I'm just like, you know what?
Be
I,
you. You have to be true to who you are. And God makes no, and I look at it like this: God makes no mistakes. So he doesn't put more on us than we can bear. And even in your autism, there's a lesson and there's a blessing. And for the people who are so narrow minded because they assume that all people have to speak or talk in one certain way, they need to understand that you're going to encounter all sorts of people who sound many different ways, who have voices sound high pitch. Look at Montel Jordan. He can sing soprano and he's what, 6'8"? Come on. So people need to open up their minds. Okay. I'm gonna ask you about one more. It says I'm nonverbal. If I don't answer, people think I'm rude. In reality, talking can be tiring. Are there times when just talking too much just makes you feel like you need a 30-second timeout?
I feel like sometimes there are days where I'm just in my own head, honestly. Like
Mm-hmm.
I I have fantasies of sometimes, like, I love to write, I
Mm-hmm.
love to sing, or I fantasize a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So I
So like Issa Rae does, and what is that show?
insecure.
Insecure, how she has those bathroom moments. Are you her and Lizzie McGuire? Because I think she did it too. Where she
Yeah,
had her little animated character.
yeah. And then sometimes I'm Lizzie McGuire and partly Issa Rae. I'm not gonna lie, because sometimes at work I'm just having those moments where I'm just like, please don't. And I'm just like, so you can just tell me that,
Well,
please
maybe
don't.
maybe you need to develop you a comic book or a cartoon where you're the African American brother, because I haven't seen them have a cartoon where a man has his internal voice. I guess they didn't think that men had those internal voices.
Yeah, I've just been like, I just fantasize a lot. So I'm just thinking, I just try to turn my autism into a I try to look at my autism as a gift, mad, and just try and see it as a brighter side. Sometimes it's something that God gave me and I can try and use it for the better.
That's okay. I mean, it's not all live all, die all. You know, people sometimes say silly things because they don't know. Sometimes when versus admitting that they don't know, they come out and they say things that they probably shouldn't say. But as long as you are brave enough to be your own advocate and stand up for yourself, you will continue to educate people along the way. And we're never too old to learn. So I don't care who it is, what walk of life they are from. You're never too old to learn that maybe your way of doing things is not the best way. And maybe the way they're communicating with you is not the best way.
Hmm.
And maybe that doesn't work for you. And that's okay. So one more thing I wanted to talk about. So people take the wrong way. People often take things the wrong way because of the difference between our tones of voice and body language. So as someone who loves communication, I I love communication. I love studying communication. I love studying nonverbal communication because I feel like one of the worst things one of the things people are horrible at is listening. We talk all the time, but we hardly listen.
That
And
is
it was
very
so
true.
funny. I once saw a little caption. It says, autistic individuals see what we miss because we're so busy talking and being verbal and making sure we're expressing the right level of excitement and doing all the right levels of communication that we forget to listen. And I think when you started noticing that, and I started realizing, I was like, huh. So my son's autism is maybe his superpower. It's going to help him navigate some sticky situations and avoid certain people because he can perceive something that maybe my five senses is missing. So, do
Just call
you
me.
believe that do you think that's true about you that, people take things the wrong way when you mean it another way?
I feel that sometimes people can be perceived that way. I look at this as sometimes a blessing and a curse. Some
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you will be looked down upon, and sometimes because I'm not gonna sugarcoat this today
Mm-hmm.
because frankly, it's what you told me before I got out of work. I'm a black man with autism, and what else am I gonna do? And that's the downside of it. But the blessing
That's
is
not a
that
downside. That's just the reality.
it's the reality. And thank you for correcting me on that. But the blessing is that I get to make something of myself with my autism and with everyone else who has autism or ability, whatever we're calling it the right now, we can do so much more. We could be the next Steve Jobs, the next Snoop Dogg.
You never know.
I
Because
know.
I will say this, autistic children and individuals are very intense. They are they're very intense, and when they commit to something, they really commit and they're very focused. So the things that make autistic different, it actually really, in my opinion, makes them a better person. Um, and let's see, Kathy sharing, she says her coworker's daughter wouldn't talk to anyone, but when she sees her, she talks to me. And that's where I feel like autistic kids know genuine people. They can recognize who are genuine, sincere people. I have learned to take up cute look at how my son is corresponding with individuals. I feel like he's like a human lie detector. Like he can tell the good from the bad. Where
Girl,
something may not seem right, they always say, old people say children and dogs. Yes, I pay attention 100%. She said she felt spell, and her parents were amazed because their daughter probably doesn't easily open up, and Kylan is like that. So I started paying attention to that. When we would go places, I would see who he would avoid and who he was willing to talk to. And that, I feel like that's within itself is a gift, because sometimes we get hoodwinked by people because they are putting on a fake facade, and we don't pick up on it, but autistic kids can.
when
Especially if you're helping your autistic child be social. I've learned too. One of the things I did with Kylan, I made sure he was enrolled into theater classes. Yeah, I probably shouldn't have did that, but you know what? The psychiatrist, she told me, she said it's a good mechanism to teach him how to fake expression. It still may be uncomfortable for him, but he's learning to at least give the facade of the necessary communication. And that way he doesn't readily stand out. And I know people are going to be like, well, she shouldn't have said that. You don't know what, yada, yada, yada. But here's the deal. There are some times when it's okay to be vulnerable. And then sometimes you don't feel like wearing the shoulder of being, you don't feel like being whatever we are dealing with. Like there are times, sometimes we just want to be without having to explain ourselves. And that could be a tool for Kylan. I didn't realize how long I have been running my mouth this evening. We're at 55 minutes, but I want to wrap up real quick with 9 ways to support an autistic person. Shawnee, can you pull that up? And I am going to post the slides that I had on my blog, beyondtodayfortomorrow.com. And that way you can go over there and finish reading through the slides. We didn't get to all of the misconceptions versus reality, but I felt like we at least got the ball started. And what we may do next month is have Kylan back on so we can continue our discussion about the autistic man's life journey. How about that? I know I'm being extra, but number 1, explain every stage of what is about to happen, the who, what, when, where, why, and how. That is very helpful to an autistic person. What you may not know is autistic children have a hard time adapting to change quickly. And sometimes if you can help them through their transition period, they can adapt better than some of the children that are quote unquote normal. Number 2, maintain a routine and try to prevent last minute changes. I remember when Kylan was little, he used to love to ask what time of day it was. And he always had to have his 3 meals. He would say, so we've had breakfast and lunch and we need to have dinner. And on Sundays, he would be like, okay, so we only had 2 meals. I said, no, let's break this up. On Sundays, more than likely, we're going to only eat twice a day. And he was like, really? And so he ran into his room, he thought about it, and he's like, okay, I think I can do Sunday 2 times a day and breakfast and dinner. So, I mean, if you work with your child, it's not rocket science. Come on, people, let's be more involved parents. Number 3, ask about what support or accommodations he or she may need and listen to them. Again, as I said just a few minutes ago, I love to study communication, but I realize one of the most important elements of communication we do horribly. We fail to listen. Sometimes we're so busy crafting our response that we fail to really listen and understand what is being communicated. And we see that every day in America. All you have to do is go on Instagram, TikTok, or whatever and see the videos of the Karens. I tell you right now, it's really getting tired. Number 4, educate yourself and learn about autism. Inform yourself about false stereotypes. That's important. One of the things that I wanted to accomplish tonight, and I started running my mouth too much, but was I wanted people to understand the false conceptions versus the reality. I wanted to hear from a young man who's actually living this every day. So he can tell us, yeah, I encounter people who are ignorant, who don't understand that my voice is going to fluctuate. And I'm not doing it because I am homosexual. I'm doing it because I have autistic. Grow up, expand your mind, people. Allow them to be themselves. And stop stigmatizing and judging them. Let them be themselves. If they don't look at you in the eye, it doesn't mean they're being deceptive. They don't have time to be deceptive. One thing I admire about autistic individuals is very black and white. There's no gray area. There's no smoky mirrors. They're going to tell it to you, quite frankly, quite bluntly. I know some people would be like, well, damn, can you sugarcoat it? No, we sugarcoat too much. That's why we have Karens running around attacking people and then faking like they're the victim. Number 6, use clear and and direct language to try to avoid using sarcasm and words with double meaning. Because like I just said, autistic individuals are very black and white. It's right or wrong. There's no in between. Number 7, give them extra time to process verbal information and write important things down. One of the things I still buy for Kylan, even though he's in college now, is a weekly, monthly planner. So he can write down things that are very important to him. However, he's more connected to his phone. So I tell him, go into your notes on your notes app and create a little note so you'll have that important information. That helps him a whole lot. And number 8, validate their struggle, even if you don't understand it yourself. We have to stop as individuals thinking that just because you don't understand it, an individual's struggle is not real. You're not supposed to know everything. You are not the garden of knowledge. You're not good and evil. You don't know every damn thing. And I wish people would stop thinking they did. I don't care if you're 20 or 100. You can still learn something new every day. And if you encounter someone with autism, instead of thinking that the individual is being rude, one of the things I noticed about my son, and I helped him because I noticed he would mimic very expensive vocabulary. So I started telling him to spell the words. And believe it or not, because language was his thing, he would spell them. But it started making him think about what he was saying. So I did that to help him blend in better with his peers. However, now I tell him, don't adjust who you are to be with other people. Other people need to expand their thought processes to understand that, hey, he just may be a little bit different. And number 9, show interest in their special interests, in their hyperfixations. I can tell you right now, Kylan's hyperfixation has always been music. And I think that has been a calming force for him. One of his special interests has been trains. And am I right?
Yes, you are.
I cannot tell you guys right now, Thomas the Tank Engine owes me a royalty check, and so does Dre's Beats, because I cannot tell you how many pairs of headphones I've had to buy. My parents have had to buy. My sister and my brother have chipped in money to buy, because for him, wearing his headphones would help him relax in social settings. So instead of being judgmental, and I have to say, I have to give my family a round of applause. Nessa, Shell, and Jason, they all were really, really good with helping him be him. I think one of the reasons Kylan is able to be such a phenomenal young man, and I'm not just saying that because he's my son, I'm saying this because I truly believe it, but he grew up in an environment where we tried to understand, and we didn't try to conform him to us. We gave him the room to be who he was meant to be. I want to thank you tonight for joining us. I apologize if it jumped around a lot and if I was just going on and on. This is something that is I'm very passionate about, as you can see. We're going to have Kylan on again. Exactly, Kathy. Music does relax the mind. Thank you for joining us tonight. We normally go live on Wednesday night, but we were trying to accommodate Kylan's schedule. So we're going to have to get him back in, and we're going to finish breaking down some of the myths and misinformation and falsehoods that people are believing about autism. Thank you for joining us at Beyond Today for Tomorrow. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.